This happened back in 2013 when I was 17. My family was looking at a house we might buy, and the owner came by to meet us. He seemed friendly enough, an older guy who told us he'd built the whole place with his own hands. I hung back while everyone chatted. The owner was laughing and joking with my parents when the conversation hit a brief pause. That's when he turned away from them, and his entire face transformed. The friendly smile vanished, replaced by the most evil, hateful expression I'd ever witnessed. I don't think he realized I was watching him. My head was tilted down like I was looking at my phone, but I was keeping my eyes locked on him the entire time. The second he turned back toward my parents, his face switched again. That warm smile returned as if nothing had happened. My stomach twisted into knots. Later I told my mom what I'd seen. She thought it was strange, but suggested maybe he was just awkward around people. She didn't seem too concerned. We bought the house anyway because it seemed like a good deal, and a nice place to call home. After moving in, everything felt fine at first. The following weekend, my family planned to attend church. I wasn't feeling it that day, so I told them I'd stay behind. They were okay with that, and headed out, leaving me by myself. I didn't think twice about it at the time. It was Sunday morning, around 11, when I heard incredibly loud banging coming from outside. The noise had a steady rhythm, and seemed to be coming from the side of the house. I was upstairs on the opposite side, so I couldn't see what was causing it. I figured it might just be the wind, since the weather was pretty stormy that day. I shrugged it off and tried to ignore it. After about 5 minutes, the banging finally stopped. Then, maybe 10 minutes later, I started hearing footsteps below me. It sounded exactly like someone walking through the house. I could hear chairs scraping across the floor, kitchen cabinets being opened, and even the refrigerator door opening. My heart jumped into my throat. I quickly and quietly locked my bedroom door, trying not to make a single sound. I grabbed my baseball bat from the corner where I kept it. Then I picked up my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. I whispered my address to the operator and explained what was happening. While I was still on the call, I sent a quick text to my mom. I tried to keep myself calm, but then I heard footsteps heading toward the stairs. The walls in that house were thin, so I could track exactly where this person was moving. My mom texted back saying she was heading home right away. She was 30 minutes away. There I was, a 17-year-old girl, barely over 5 feet tall, and weighing less than 100 pounds, hiding in my room with just a bat. I knew if whoever was down there got through my door, they could easily overpower me and take my only weapon. Fear flooded through me until I could barely think. I heard footsteps coming down the hallway, getting closer and closer to my door. Then I saw the doorknob turn. It stopped because I'd locked it. Whoever it was just stood there on the other side. They didn't move. I could hear breathing through the door. Those 10 seconds stretched out and felt like an eternity. Then I heard them turn around and walk back down the hallway. A moment later I heard the back door open and slam shut. About 3 minutes after that, the police arrived. The operator asked if I could let them in, or if they needed to force the door open. Since I was pretty sure the intruder had left, I went downstairs and unlocked it for them. But when they searched the house, there was nobody there. No signs of a break-in. Nothing disturbed. It was like the person had simply vanished into thin air. When my mom got home, she looked at my stepdad and asked if he'd changed the locks yet. He said he hadn't. The most disturbing part, the thing that actually proved my story, was the hallway floor. My mom had vacuumed it that very morning, so it was completely clean. But now there were shoe prints in the carpet, much bigger than any shoes anyone in our family wore. The police hadn't gone upstairs, so the prints couldn't have been theirs, and the prints ended right outside my bedroom door. We changed the locks the very next day, and installed extra security, but I never felt safe in that house again. Even now, I get chills remembering how close I was to whoever, or whatever, stood on the other side of that door. My wife and I purchased a house out in rural Missouri. The place was built in 1997. The original owner died in 2022 after battling a serious illness. While he was sick, he stayed in a room that wasn't the master bedroom. His wife continued living there for years after his death. She didn't want to sell, but the mortgage payments became too much for her to handle alone. When we first started the moving process, we stayed at a hotel about 20 miles from the property. The house used to be a horse ranch, sitting deep in the countryside. One day, I turned on a hallway light and left it on all day and night, but I found it switched off 3 different times that same day. This hallway is extremely dark and sits near the bedroom and bathroom, where the man stayed during his illness. My wife and I were constantly on the move, making trips to Walmart, the hotel, and picking up food throughout the day. It was exhausting, and we were both worn out. When I finally returned to the house, I noticed the hallway light was off yet again. I casually asked my wife if she'd turned it off. She looked at me confused and said no. Why would I? Getting annoyed, I told her it had to be her. When I looked at the switch, I could see it was the kind that clicks firmly into the on and off position. Earlier that same day, I was the first one to enter the house while my wife was in the barn about 200 feet away. We'd left our dogs in the laundry room overnight, and this was our first time returning to the house that morning. I walked out onto the back patio through the sliding door and opened the outside entrance to the laundry room to let the dogs out. I stepped inside the laundry room and closed the door behind me. When I tried to turn the laundry door handle, it doesn't have a lock. I couldn't get it to move at all. It was completely stuck. So I went back out to the patio and into the house through the sliding door. When I tried opening the laundry door from the inside, it opened smoothly with no resistance whatsoever. The door and all its hardware are in excellent condition, almost brand new. Maybe this doesn't mean anything, but it felt wrong. I decided to leave the hallway light on again. We went out for dinner and returned in the evening. The hallway light was still on. That night, we put the pugs in the laundry room and left for the hotel. When we came back the next day, we discovered the pugs had somehow gotten out of the laundry room and destroyed several items by chewing them up. We have an ADT alarm system with motion sensors installed throughout the house, but it never went off even though the dogs were running all over the place. We drive trucks for our job, so we're usually gone for a week or 2 at a time. Normally at our old house, a woman would come take care of our animals. But here's what doesn't make sense. How could a small dog reach up and pull down on a door handle, not a knob to open the door? If it has to be pulled down and the door opens toward you, the dogs aren't tall enough to reach it. So how did the dogs escape 3 times like this, night after night? It would make sense if the dog jumped up, pulled the handle down, and the door pushed out. But this door has to be pulled inward after the handle is pulled down. What's even stranger is that every single time we returned, the door was always closed when the dogs had escaped. I tested the handle with a quick pull down, and the door swung open inward on its own. But it seems physically impossible for the door to close by itself, because it only swings inward, away from the frame. Someone would absolutely have to pull it closed. My dogs aren't clever enough to close a door behind themselves, or they would have been trapped inside like they were when I originally put them in there. If this doesn't make sense to you, maybe what happened next? Well, on the 4th night, I was about to open the door to the bedroom, where the sick owner had stayed before going into hospice care. I pulled down on the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. Not only was it stuck, but the door had absolutely no movement in it whatsoever. Before this, the door always had a slight give when you pushed on it. It felt like something on the other side was using every ounce of strength to push back against the door. The handle refused to move. It's a handle that can lock, and I pushed on it hard. Then suddenly it gave way, like someone had quickly let go. This absolutely terrified me, and I nearly ran outside to my wife in the pickup truck. The door handle made no sound when it released. Not a single noise. It was more than just creepy. It genuinely scared me. I was so frightened, I can barely put it into words. Right now we're not living in the house, because it flooded several weeks ago. We're back in California,
waiting to find out about possible repairs. Since we've been here in California, the alarm has triggered multiple times. The most recent alarm went off just a few days ago. ADT reported that the front door had been opened and there was motion detected in the front room, but the officer who responded said everything was secure. This has happened twice now. It's been quiet since then, but we're not sure if we even want to live there anymore, even after the house gets repaired. As people of faith, we're not sure what to do. We tried blessing the house, but some of these strange events have happened even after we left. Evil absolutely exists, but I don't want it inside my house. This isn't a joke. God forbid that alarm goes off in the middle of the night again. Most people watch those ghost hunting shows and don't take them seriously, but I do. I don't think I could stay in the house by myself. So far my wife hasn't been bothered by any of this. I told her if we do decide to move back in, I'm putting crosses all over the house. The owner's wife wasn't truthful about the property to close the sale, and I was so angry that I destroyed something they'd left on the property that was meant for a deceased relative. The house was also left full of trash. I've tried to repair what I destroyed, but I can't locate the missing pieces after all these months. A few years back, my mom, my brother and I moved from downstate to upstate New York. After finishing high school, we ended up in a neighborhood mostly filled with older residents. Our house had previously belonged to an elderly couple, but they hadn't passed away. They'd just moved out. During the first year of living there, not many strange things occurred. The only odd thing was hearing footsteps in my mom's bedroom upstairs while I was in the basement. I was the only one home, so it was definitely weird. I tried convincing myself it was just the house settling, but I didn't really buy that explanation.
That same year, on Thanksgiving morning, I was responsible for loading all the food we'd prepared into the car, sitting in the driveway. It was a cold morning, and I was rushing a bit to make sure everything fit without ruining the pies or casseroles. As I carefully placed the last pie into the car, I suddenly heard an older woman's voice right behind me. She said, "You'd better be careful with that." She sounded like she was gently teasing me. I clearly remember rolling my eyes, since I was facing the house with my back to her. I put on a polite smile and turned around, ready to make small talk with her. But when I turned, there was nobody there. I looked up and down the street, thinking maybe the old woman had been walking past, and kept going, but I couldn't see anyone anywhere. For a second, I thought maybe I'd imagined it, but it felt way too real to be in my head. I figured it must be my brother playing a prank on me, maybe doing a funny voice. I checked the porch and the garage to find him, but he wasn't in either place. My mom walked outside right then, and I asked her if she'd told me to be careful. She said no, and looked puzzled. I think that was the day I started believing in ghosts, or whatever that presence was. About a month later, during winter break, I was back at home, curled up in my bed. Everything was silent, until I suddenly heard soft sobbing coming from somewhere close by. The crying sounded muffled, so I assumed it might be my mom. I was about to go check on her, when she sent me a text, asking if I was okay. I replied yes, and asked why. She said she'd heard crying, and thought it was me. I told her I'd assumed it was either her, or the dog. She said no, the dog was sound asleep, at the foot of her bed. We both agreed it must have been the wind, or maybe a coyote outside, but to me, it sounded way too human, and way too sorrowful to be either of those things. Then one day, I asked my mom what she thought about all of it. The footsteps, the old woman, the crying. She said she believes it might be Grandma. My grandmother, her mom, had died about 6 months after we'd moved into our new house. I asked her why she thought that. She explained that sometimes she hears knocking on her door and assumes it's me or my brother, but then she remembers we're both away at college. I didn't tell my mom this, but I don't believe it's Grandma. She never visited this house because she got sick the very day we moved in,
and never had the chance to come see it. Also, the voice I heard on Thanksgiving sounded nothing like her. Grandma's voice was gentle and soothing, but this voice was sharp and harsh. When I was about 12 years old, living in Kansas, something really unsettling happened that I'll never forget. I was in my room, sitting on the floor, playing Halo on my old Xbox. My parents had gone out to run errands, and my older sister was at work, so I was home alone. Well, not completely alone. I had our 2 dogs with me, a little terrier and a Bichon Frise. They weren't big guard dogs, more like tiny alarms that barked at anything out of the ordinary. I'd been home alone plenty of times before, so it wasn't unusual. We lived in a pretty safe neighborhood, where nothing dangerous ever really took place, except for one incident when someone spray-painted KKK graffiti on some playground equipment nearby. Anyway, I was relaxing in my chair, fully absorbed in my game. I had a bag of Doritos in one hand, and my controller in the other, completely focused on the screen. That's when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of my front door opening and then closing, like someone had just walked into the house. The room I was in faced the backyard, so I couldn't see the front door or whoever might be coming inside. When I heard the sound of the door, my 2 dogs immediately perked up and ran into the living room. I figured it must be my parents coming home earlier than expected. Maybe they'd finished their errands faster than planned, but still, something about it didn't feel right. Just to be safe, I called out, "Mom, Dad, is that you?" My voice bounced through the house, but nobody answered. That made me nervous. I've always been a bit paranoid, probably because weird things tend to happen around me. My dogs weren't barking like they normally do when someone comes home, and that felt wrong. I paused my game and got up to investigate. I walked into the living room, but there was nobody there. That's when uneasiness crept in. The hairs on the back of my neck stood straight up. I was certain I'd heard someone enter. I wasn't wearing headphones, and the TV volume was turned down low. I had music playing quietly in the background, so I knew the sound hadn't come from my game. As soon as I realized something was definitely wrong, I went straight to my parents' closet and grabbed my baseball bat. That's just what you do in the Midwest. When you think there might be danger, you arm yourself. I walked back into the living room, holding the baseball bat out in front of me like I had any idea what I was doing. I decided to call my dad first, but he didn't pick up. Then I tried my mom. No answer from her either. Getting more anxious, I called 2 of my best friends, but neither of them answered. My 12-year-old mind immediately jumped to the absolute worst conclusion. What if something horrible had happened to all of them? For the first time ever, I decided to dial 9. The operator told me to stay calm, and said police were on their way, but staying calm was nearly impossible. There was a hallway near my front door, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was hiding in there, waiting to jump out and attack me. My 2 dogs were right beside me, both staring intently at the hallway. That made it even harder to keep my cool. If they were acting like something was there, I knew I wasn't making this up. My fear kept building, and I couldn't take my eyes off that hallway. I stood there frozen for what felt like forever, but it was probably only a couple of minutes. The operator kept repeating for me to stay calm. Just then, thankfully, my parents opened the front door. My dad looked at me and asked, "What on earth are you doing?" I quickly explained the situation. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed his pistol from the front room, and we prepared to search the house. I'd always thought it would be exciting to clear rooms like a SWAT team, but man, I was absolutely terrified. Every time we opened a bedroom door, my heart pounded in my chest. We didn't find anything though. The police showed up shortly after, and they informed us that this kind of thing had been happening over the past few weeks. Apparently people were watching for homeowners to leave, checking if doors were unlocked, and if they were, they'd slip inside and steal valuables. The police said whoever it was probably ran off when they realized someone was home. But that explanation didn't sit right with me, because I only heard the door open and close once.